Ravens, Jets, the return of Joe Flacco to his former team, or against his former team. So, obviously, not particularly relevant there. Zach Wilson is out for this game, so a bit of a snoozer here. But we talk about every game. There are still interesting things to look at, why it's going to happen, all that type of stuff. So, let's get into it, right? Ravens offense, there are some not necessarily big sweeping changes, but some interesting little ones that I actually think are going to help this team. So you do replace some offensive linemen. Ronnie Stanley probably not going to, almost certainly not going to play this game. You're going to have Juwan James stepping in as a starter. He's missed some time with injuries over the past 2 years, including a full year, almost 2 full years. The dude's good when he's on the field. I'm actually really excited about that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Morgan Moses coming in as a new starter, first round pick, Tyler Linderbaum. The full debut of after a full offseason, Rashad Bateman, of course, hurt during previous offseason return to J.K. Dobbins. So there's a lot of interesting stuff for the Ravens. And for this Jets defense, this unit has a chance to be pretty damn good with some small tweaks. This game is going to be a little tougher. We'll talk about that. But, there's talent on this team. The front four is, frankly, really good. Carl Lawson, of course, missed all last year with injuries, coming back. Quincy Williams is amazing. John Franklin Myers, awesome, underrated player. Sauce Gardner, really high first-round pick. Bring over DJ. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this roster, on this defensive side of the football for the Jets here that I think is really interesting to talk about, especially in this matchup with the Ravens. So, with the Ravens, right, we are all about can they run the ball. That is their number one goal at all times, and they have some really unique properties running the ball, which everybody knows about, right? Because the way they lean on Lamar Jackson, the way they put linebackers in really tough space with not just Lamar Jackson, but their running backs because they're having to cover so many different avenues. The way that they ask their offensive linemen to kind of skip guys and move all the way down the field. It's really interesting. So what you need for competing with the Ravens, right, is you need to be able to stand up at the line of scrimmage. Can the Jets do that? Well, I do like them to be able to do that in this game. So the guards for the Ravens, Ben Powers, Kevin Zeitler, still absolutely good players. Kevin obviously has an I in his name there as well. But still good players. Tyler Linderbaum is a first-round center. That doesn't mean just about anything, but likely not to be horrible. Without Ronnie Stanley, you have Juwan James, who I do like as a run blocker quite a bit. Actually, on the edge, he is a little bit of an athlete, is really strong. I like him there. While Morgan Moses, I think, not a particularly good player, and if Juwan James, when Ronnie Stanley gets healthy, those two should be the starting tackles. The guys listed on the left side there, but Morgan Moses is a mediocre veteran who can step in and do a job pretty well. And on this Ravens team, the way that they do run block and stay strong at the line of scrimmage, I think he can at least lean on guys enough to be useful, more useful than Alejandro Villanueva ever was, who he's replacing. So they're competing, like I said, with really, really good players on the Jets side of the ball. Quincy Williams is absolutely incredible. He has worked out for a top 3 pick, more than you could probably ask for outside of some injuries. He's been buried on a horrible Jets team, sure, but the dude's really, really good. Sheldon Rankins, still a really good player, though he's getting a little bit up there in age. Nathan Shepard is good depth. Carl Lawson, like I said, coming off an injury, better pass rusher than he's a run defender, but the dude can play. John Franklin Myers is incredible. They have a first-round pick there, and Jermaine Johnson. There's a lot of talent here. On the front four. Unfortunately for them, right, the Ravens, once you get past there, you need linebackers who can compete in space and who are not going to get fooled by what the Ravens do as far as the option football, the putting guys in space, that type of stuff. And that's where you run into issues with this Jets team. CJ Mosley, he'll be all right in this game. He'll be just fine. He's been obviously a former Raven himself, is used to this type of stuff. Granted, that was before Lamar, but he is a smart player who's going to be in the correct position most of the time. However, he's a little bit limited as an athlete, especially at his age at this point. So there is still some worry there. The other guys, though, that's what scares me. Quincy Williams especially. Quincy Williams does have some moments as a guy who can trigger really, really fast, get right at the ball carrier near the line of scrimmage. If he makes the tackle or not, you get into some sketchy territory, but he can get there at least. However, a lot of times he's guessing. He guesses wrong. Not a particularly smart player, doesn't actually end up in the correct position a lot of times. And like I said, when you're playing the Ravens, a player like that is really scary because they can run themselves out of position so quickly and give up big stuff behind them that I'm concerned. And Quan Alexander is actually really similar. Now, he's a lot better. He is smarter. He's less likely to miss tackles than Quincy Williams is, but they are really in the same vein of player. And when you have two of them out there, over the number of attempts that the Ravens are going to get running the ball, you just get really scared. I do like Jordan Whitehead, being over from safety from the Buccaneers, as far as a guy who can help in the run game, stuff like that. But at a point, with the way the Ravens do things, it's just not quite enough. And so through the air, can the Ravens move the ball again? Very likely. Their run game or their pass game also much different than the rest of the league. But this offensive line is going to be mostly okay in this game, despite the strength of the Jets front, just because Lamar's not going to hold the ball that long generally. Quincy Williams will make plays, but he's not, Aaron Donald, which is probably what's necessary. John Franklin Myers, like I said, really good. Will probably kind of school Morgan Moses a lot of times, but he's not, he's not Von Miller. He's not this incredibly high-end player. And the other guys, Carl Lawson, Bryce Huff, I do like them. I do think they're going to win. I do think this Jets front is good. They're just not quite elite in the way that they need to be, when the Ravens are going to have very few pass attempts and a lot of it is play action. So can the Jets cover guys? Also there, I think maybe Sauce Gardner could be really good. Rookie corner, who knows? But DJ Reed, I know, we know is really good. Player on the Seahawks. He's been good since he's gotten playing time all over. And while he's a little bit undersized, he sticks with people. Bryce Hall has more or less lived up to his steel reputation from when he was drafted. He's not perfect. He's not really a shutdown guy by any means, but he can play. And Michael Carter in the slot as a later round rookie too has shown that he can compete on an NFL field. What you run into, though, is that Lamar Jackson is more or less completely dependent on the strength of the safeties of the other team. You can look throughout his whole career. If the other team has good safeties, the Ravens are going to be limited. If the other team has bad safeties, no matter how good or bad the rest of their defense is, the Ravens will kill them. That's how Lamar works the ball up and down the field. He's really strictly between the hatches, looking at the way safeties are playing stuff. Otherwise, he runs a lot of unique things with Lamar Jackson, but that's the problem in this game. Well, I mentioned that Jordan Whitehead is a positive in the run game here. As a pass defender, he does absolutely leave some stuff to be desired, especially the further you get down the field. And man, LaMarcus Joyner, 10 years ago almost, not quite, like 8 years ago on the Rams, he was a good player. But at this point, ever since he went to the Raiders, he has been one of the absolute worst defenders in the entirety of the league. He is better at safety than he was at slot corner, but he's tough, man. And whether it's him on the field or if it is Ashton Davis, who's gotten very little playing time and not been very good since he got in the league, you just can't really do it against Lamar Jackson. That's going to be the downfall. So I had them at 26 to 32 points. Frankly, that is still being pretty conservative. They could get higher than that. They've shown they can beat up on these really bad teams like this in ways over the past few years where they can get higher. Now, I do think I'll give credit, like I said, to a lot of the talent on the Jets defense that's going to keep them from going crazy. I do like the Jets corner, so it's not like the Ravens are going to be super, super explosive, I don't think. But you're just talking about a level of sustained success that it leads to a lot of points, especially because of the Jets side of the football. Before we really get to anything else, like I said, Zach Wilson out of this game, so we're talking about Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, you got to ask why the hell, what is even the point of him starting a game at this point? Mike White's not very good, but he at least might be something. Joe Flacco, is going to be bad and hurt your team, and I don't really understand what the point, like I said, of him even playing is, but here you go. That's what they're doing. So are they going to be able to run the ball? First thing. And that's really important, obviously, with Joe Flacco on their team, because if they can't run the ball, they definitely ain't passing it. So, first you got to start this offensive line. Now, I will say the Jets, in general, have done a really good job of building the offensive line in this roster. Not just this iteration, but the last few. The problem is they've just gone through so many injuries. Obviously, Mekhi Becton out probably for the year. They bring in Dwayne Brown, who was about as good a replacement as you could ask for at that point in the offseason. But he already is hurt, so now you're starting a fourth-round rookie at tackle, and that is very unlikely to go well. I do like George Fant for sure. A player who's been underrated for a long time. People, for some reason, thought he sucked on this. He never did. He was always pretty good. Not incredible, but he's a starting-level player. Like Tomlinson, they bring over from the 49ers. Absolutely good player. Elijah Vera Tucker. Not crazy impressed with him, especially as a first-rounder. But he can play for sure. He does have the movement skills that granted him the reputation that took him the first round. So, there's talent here. Connor McGovern's still one of the worst centers in football. That's tough, but it is. The center position only matters so much. The issue is that despite the various levels of talent and success, I think that line could have, it's really tough into the Ravens because their front three, front five, whatever you want to talk about, is still really good. Michael Pierce, they bring back to replace Brandon Williams. He's not the same level, but really, really good nose tackle. Calais Campbell is still a dominant force, especially against the run. Justin Madubuike, Broderick Washington have both shown quite a bit to me as far as rotational defensive linemen. Patrick Ricard even too. Like they have a lot of players who can play. And their edges, Justin Houston especially, is just so much better than the Jets' tackles and run defense or run game in this game that it's tough to see any success. This team is so coached so well too. While their linebackers I think are really vulnerable at times, Patrick Queen kind of in the same vein of those guys I talked about on the Jets, and Malik Harrison is just really slow. In this game, they'll be fine. They'll be good enough to do what they need to do and limit the Jets from running the ball up and down the field. So that's tough. So then you talk about the pass game. And you could go into it a lot, right? Because the Jets actually have really capable wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, first-round guy, could be really good. Elijah Moore, we know, is pretty damn good. Corey Davis has his limitations as a player as a number one receiver, but he has some of the strongest hands in the league, and he at least will win routes that he's generally supposed to. They bring over C.J. Uzomah and Tyler Conklin, who are two capable but non-important tight ends. But you have guys who theoretically could win if they're in better situations. Is with Joe Flacco, man. You hesitate to talk about it too much. And unfortunately for the Jets, too, the Ravens secondary is kind of back to its best. It seems like Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, still probably the best corner duo, or absolutely one of the top three in the league. They are rehabbing Kyle Fuller here, who I still very much believe in as a player. He was bad on the Broncos at the beginning of last year, but if there's any team that's going to get him to play well, it's definitely this one, and he fits their scheme so well, I think. I'm pretty sure he's going to end up being really good for them. Chuck Clark is a reasonable safety. They have a first-round pick in Kyle Hamilton at safety. And they signed Marcus Williams, who fits their scheme to a T, absolutely incredibly, replacing what they lost when they used to have like Earl Thomas and those type of true center. I'm not going to say Ed Reed, he's obviously not at that level, but those true center fielders, they'll let them do all that crazy stuff in front of them while those guys can still be ball hawks in the back. Marcus Williams really, really fits that, and I'm super excited about him on this team. So there's just so many struggles for the Jets offensively. I have them at 3 to 10 points. Their receivers are talented enough that they could get some stuff done. I like their defense enough that maybe they could force a short field. But it's near impossible with Joe Flacco quarterback in this game to see any level of meaningful success at any point. So Ravens are going to win this game really comfortably. This spread is only at -6.5. I guess people are really down on the Ravens because of what happened last year. This team went through so many injuries, and they've shown to be the exact type of team that blows out bad teams before. I really, really like that line. It is a road favorite in week 1, which traditionally is a little bit vulnerable, but not. This line should be like 12, 15 or something like that. As far as the over-under goes, I do like the under because the Jets probably won't score. Only issue I have with this is the Ravens might score 45 by themselves. So, but for sure, yeah, Ravens, I mean, it's just such a comfortable win the way this team matches up, unless some absolutely bonkers shit happens. So that's one of the least interesting matchups of week 1, but still, hey, it's football, it's fun to talk about.